That and more on Monday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kickaround.
What happened?
We
What happened?
Oopie.
What happened? Why'd you stop talking?
I've got something playing in my ear. Excuse me.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that is. Apologies.
Yeah. Apologies indeed, but welcome to the show. This is Morning Kickaround, where we dot the map of the American soccer landscape. We got there. It is live. Jason comes back from his time away, and the technical setup has just absolutely exploded. My apologies. My name, Robert Kerr, local soccer guy, and to my side, back on the continental United States, it is Jason Davis, radio soccer guy. How you feeling, sir?
I'm good. I'm back in the home studio, back in the home confines here in Northern Virginia, ready to talk about the beautiful game. Hope that our little hiccup there, because I didn't hear whatever it is you were hearing. I didn't hear.
Something came absolutely blasting through my headphones. I think it was like the Instagram. We are streaming live on YouTube and on Instagram, and I think the Instagram was playing back to me. So I was hearing myself from 5 seconds previous playing back to me. So my apologies on that. And then no worries, you can just skip forward if you back on another time.
There's no problem with doing a live show. And look, we have a producer Jenny, who we don't recognize often enough.
Not enough.
Yeah, Jenny is a critical part of the show, but this is just another reason that we need to grow the show so that we can take things off of Rob Kerr's plate and give them to other people, and then he doesn't have to worry about getting blasted by Instagram or whatever that was. Since you look, we mentioned that we're pushing to Instagram, so shout out to anybody watching on Instagram. If you are watching on your phone on YouTube, where our main spot, you will probably get the show vertical if you hold your phone vertical, or horizontal if you hold your phone or horizontal. I believe that is the case. If you go over to the YouTube channel and you want options, you have to pick between the two. I think you get both. Just as a point of housekeeping here, Rob, for anybody who's like, oh, why am I seeing this vertical version? You can go to the channel and select the horizontal version of the show.
You know that old saying, no good deed goes unpunished? Maybe the technical problems are stemming from me taking a bash to the head this weekend. I thought I took it upon myself to empty out the shed, try to do some fixing up around the house, and a metal radio flyer, wooden metal radio flyer, old school, old fashioned, toboggan, fell from a high and bashed me, if you can see right here. So maybe that's all part of it. Is we are in a post concussion episode of the show, but no matter.
Such a Michigan thing to have happen. Such a Michigan-ass thing to happen to Rob Kerr.
My vintage toboggan fell off the shelf and smashed me in the head.
Yeah, there's look, I understand that's probably a very Midwestern thing, not just Michigan, but there's lots of people in this country like, what? You have a toboggan just like on a shelf somewhere and it can fall and hit you in the head? Like, what is that?
Yeah, and it's prior misdeeds of not securing it properly came back months later to literally kick me in the head.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, that's neither here nor there. Your brain seems to be working okay at this point, so we can move forward on soccer.
Yeah, that aside, we got some great topics on the way. We're going to talk about the great American Cupsets of all time on the heels of quite the weekend in the FA Cup across the pond. We are going to talk about some Americans possibly on the move. Josh Sargent, big rumors swirling about him, and some other bits and bobs as well. I do want to shout out our new members that came aboard the Ultras this weekend. Phil Talks Sports and Danny Mendez. Thank you so much for joining the MK Ultras. And at the end of the show, we are going to catch up and dot the map. We haven't done that in a few weeks. And there are some new members that we need to add there. We also want to note that I want to thank all those supporting on Ko-Fi still. We haven't talked about that a great deal, but that's like a separate fundraiser. And I want to shout out to Alan, Eric, Cody, and Ron for their membership over there at Ko-Fi or coffee.com.
I want to shout out Zach, who is an Ultra, also one of the founders, one of the leaders of Mountains to Sea FC out there in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. I don't know, the Triangle, whatever you guys call that place. Raleigh. He's got a club. We love an amateur club. We love a new startup club. We love a jersey. I'm not usually a collar guy, but I'm giving this one a pass. This is a good collar. Shout out to Zach for hooking me up. This is an Olive and York joint for Mountains to Sea FC. Awesome that this was here when I got home. I think it maybe arrived while I was away in Puerto Rico, but I'm glad that it's here, and I will wear it promptly. I promise you, Zach. Forgot that I had it this morning when I was getting ready for the show and some other business afterwards, but trust me, it's here, ready to get used.
Was it buried in snow on your doorstep when you got back?
Rob, I live in Northern Virginia. Snow is not a regular occurrence. So no, it was not buried in snow. We didn't have snow while I was gone. We had snow before I left on the day of the World Cup draw in DC, which was a rarity. No snow when I got back. Just some wind, and it's chilly, but it's not. We're not talking about upper Midwest. This is not Michigan. We don't have toboggans in our sheds, in our garages normally. No.
Oh, I underestimated the southernness of your Virginia, sir. My apologies.
I live on the rain-snow line, which I may have talked about before. Like, I live on the line, and usually I'm on the bottom. I'm on the below the line, so I get rain and not snow. But it happens. We'll get blizzards every now and then. But like you guys are probably like, oh, 6 inches, whatever. We're like 6 inches, everything shuts down, and then every now and then we get like 2 feet, and the world stops moving. It's like a zombie movie outside because there's just nobody. But yeah, that's where we're at.
All right, we're going to get to the show. Support the show how you see fit on ko-fi.com/morning kickaround. And that's where we're kind of doing a fundraiser. We don't push it enough, but that is our live on location fund. And if you'd like to help us out with that fund to help us get out and about without, the corporate sponsorships and whatnot, I mean, obviously that would be nice. But if you are able to support ko-fi.com/morning kickaround, become a member of the show, or just support, by your viewing, telling a friend, spreading the word, it'd be fantastic. We should finally hit that 7K subscriber number today. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, do so now. Without further ado, let's get to the show. Let's kick our long balls here on Morning Kickaround. Big news came out over the weekend. American striker Josh Sargent, currently and for the past few years with Norwich City over in the English Championship, did not play. And it comes on the heels of when asked about it after the game, the coach said, Josh texted me. He's all up in his head about a potential transfer. And this comes from Fabrizio Romano leaking or reporting that Toronto FC of the Major League Soccer's bid $18 million for Josh Sargent. So there's a possibility of Josh Sargent coming to the MLS for the first time in his playing career for Toronto.
Yeah, this has also been written up by The Athletic yesterday, Sebastian Stafford-Bloor, and I think Tom Bogert was involved, although this does not have the flavor of a Tom Bogert joint, because those of us paying attention to MLS know that, Tommy B's usually got some detail. I don't know if there's something just he doesn't have yet that we're trying to figure out what's going on here.
Suspiciously absent from his feed, yes.
And he posted this. I saw it posted on his feed. It's just with Sebastian Stafford-Bloor, which indicates to me this is a cross-Atlantic kind of effort. Like, this is a team effort from The Athletic. You've got those guys over there covering English football. You got Tom Bogert over here covering American soccer. And what I think is missing here is whether or not this is going to get done and how it works with MLS rules and things like that. But anyway, here's the story. TFC is in discussions to sign Josh Sargent from English Championship team Norwich City. Toronto has made an $18 million bid. It's important to point out that what we're talking about currency-wise, that's 13.4 million pounds. Okay, now that sounds like a lot of money.
Other way around.
Josh Sargent's been worth more than this. In recent years, he's been worth more than 13.4 million pounds. Now, is he worth that much now? I'll let you decide. Maybe you've been closely watching Norwich City. I think things have gone a little dry for him recently. I mean, he was on a run last year where he was scoring every week. Things have gone a little dry for him recently, and Norwich City slid down the table in the English Championship. They are in the relegation zone,
Ooh.
number 22 out of 24 on 24 points. Now, they could jump Portsmouth with their next game, which is Wrexham, actually, who is challenging for a promotion playoff spot. Norwich has been they were a yo-yo team for a while, coming back up and down in the Premier League. Josh Sargent was part of that. Obviously, he's not now. I think this is interesting, and maybe this is all posturing. Josh sent me a message on Saturday, says Norwich City manager Philippe Clement, saying that he would not be available because of transfer things in his head. This is obviously not something we want, and it will have consequences. I mean, is that ominous for Josh? It is something we need to speak about inside the club, but the club has made it really clear to Josh and his agent that he will not be leaving during this transfer window. Can Josh Sargent force his way out and land in MLS? And maybe he can. So from the Norwich City side here, Rob, what we've got is we don't want him to go. We're not going to let him go. Okay.
Yeah,
we'll see if that's bluffing. Let's see if that's bluffing.
Yeah, is that negotiation tactics, or do they need him?
Sure. The other part of this is whether or not TFC, this is a good move for TFC, right? TFC has a history of dropping coin on players like this. This you could argue this is Josie Altidore redux on some level. Now, Josh Sargent's had a better time in England than Josie Altidore did, although Josie Altidore only played at Sunderland. That was only Premier League. He never played in the Championship.
Josh don't forget to stay at Hull. Never forget
he was at Hull. Josh Sargent, I think that was a loan at Hull, but Josh Sargent has always been just below the line, if you know what I mean. He's always been in this nebulous zone of, is he good or not? Now, it didn't happen for the U.S. men's national team, right? He couldn't score. Even when he was scoring at Norwich, he couldn't score for the U.S. men's national team. I think people have largely written him off as a figure for the U.S. men's national team. Now, maybe Josh hasn't written himself off, and maybe Josh still believes he has a chance of making a World Cup team in 2026, but I think his odds are fairly small. And I see some of our ultras in the chat talking about this because we're talking about the hierarchy of strikers for the U.S. men's national team. Now, I think the consensus largely is that Valorant Balogun is number one on that list. Right. And then it becomes who's number two, who's number three, who's number four. Ricardo Pepi scoring a bunch of goals, still doing his thing in Holland. We'll get to his injury in a second.
Yeah.
A potential move for Ricardo Pepi has been in the offing. And I do wonder how his injury affects that possibility, because Ricardo Pepi has been mooted as a target for Fulham. And I don't know that would necessarily be a January move, although it wouldn't hurt Fulham to have another option beyond Raul Jimenez who can score goals, because Muniz is hurt and there's lots of, anyway, that's a Fulham guy thing. I don't want to get into it. But Ricardo Pepi would be number two. Then I see Patrick Ajamang is being mentioned. Obviously, he's having a decent run right now in the Championship. Haji Wright, who has some versatility and play on the wing, is getting mentioned here. I mean, you could even argue that there could be an X factor, somebody else that pops up that gives a different profile than some of those players before you get to Josh Sargent.
Yeah.
So if you're Josh Sargent and you have the potential to get a move where somebody really wants you to go be the man, to maybe help TFC get back to the top in Major League Soccer. Toronto is a great place. It's expensive, but it's a great place to live. Like, I could understand why Josh Sargent would be considering this. I really can.
Yeah, and he'd be front and center there because obviously Toronto is in the middle of a big rebuild. And it is interesting looking at Josh Sargent's record for Norwich. Despite being a little drier than previous years, he has 8 goals and 3 assists in 24 appearances already here in this season. And then he had gotten into the double digits of goals the previous 3 seasons, but he hasn't scored for the USA since pre-COVID.
Consistently good. Yeah, it's been forever. He has been consistently scoring for Norwich, which is why he has some value, right? Which is why, again, maybe a year or two ago he's worth 20 million, and now he's not worth that anymore. But that's the question for Norwich, by the way, is whether or not they're willing to let him go. Now, of course, they are threatened by relegation. If Norwich was a mid-table Championship team and Josh Sargent said, hey, I want to go to TFC, and they're offering 14 million pounds, then maybe Norwich says, sure, no problem. No problem. We'll take the money. That's going to help us get a player for next year when we make our promotion push. But Norwich is threatened by relegation. Can they afford to let Josh Sargent leave, who's been, again, consistently scoring for them over the last couple of years, when they're in this fight, when it's kind of doubtful they're going to be able to replace his productivity in this window with 3 weeks left, 2.5 weeks left in the transfer window. That I think is part of this too. That is part of this.
I think it's kind of interesting that Josh Sargent texted his coach like, "Hey boss, I might get a new job, like leave me out of the team." That seems pretty wild. And I don't necessarily remember too many Americans getting embroiled in this sort of a thing. Maybe since the failed Deuce transfer to Liverpool, was someone kind of caught in the wind like that? I might be memory holding some things, but I can't necessarily remember an American transfer kind of getting swept up into a will he, won't he sort of a move, but an interesting move. And if it all pans out, he is currently Norwich's second leading scorer on the season. So definitely still an important player. And back to kind of his career arc, I think like many players, unfortunately, the timing of his injuries has really set back his ascent. I feel like on a number of occasions he was reaching those heights that many people thought he was going to reach, and then was sidelined with injuries.
I think you have I know that there's a way to judge a player, and certainly for example, you look at say Liam Delap at Chelsea, right? Liam Delap wasn't now he did score last weekend, right? He hadn't scored in a while, hadn't scored much at all. I can't remember if he had a goal before the weekend. And if you're just looking at his productivity, you would say, "Oh, that's a terrible signing. He's been a disaster. Get him out of the lineup." And I have seen plenty of that, right? But you saw even before he scored, there was plenty of argument that Liam Delap did a lot of things for that Chelsea team that were necessary and needed, and helped with the productivity and helped bring other players into the attack, and serving as a back to goal center forward in moments. And I wonder if Josh Sargent is again scoring in the championship, so we know he can score. But when it comes to the U.S. men's national team, he's never done it. He does a lot of things really well, but he doesn't do anything great. So that's always been the limit for him. So this feels, again, he's 25. Why not? Why not consider this? He's got a young family. I remember a couple years ago, he went on a big scoring drought. He wasn't playing really well. Turns out he had just had a kid. I'm like, that guy's not sleeping. That's why he's not playing. He's not sleeping. He's got a baby. Again, I'm just in this position where maybe it's because the stakes are lower, because he doesn't figure in the national team picture in my mind. He could make this move and find a lifestyle and be happy and help build TFC. And I think he would score in MLS. I think this Josh Sargent has the potential to be a 15 to 20 goal scorer in Major League Soccer. I really have no doubt about that.
Yeah, Tom and Philly thinking, honestly, this looks fine from his perspective. Definitely at his point of career. And I'm sure he's, had his feelers out to see if there's any Premier League teams or first division teams in Europe still looking for him. And apparently not, if he is entertaining these sort of moves. Thank you also to Mr. Bob for the super thanks. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Couldn't do this without you guys. Thank you so much for your support. And then some other folks commenting on Ajamang. Him getting in the team would be an amazing story. And definitely he's within in the shop window for Pochettino's team in 2026. And I was asked at Pickup Soccer last week, who would be the surprise guy left off the list? And I thought it's pretty hard to gauge the World Cup roster at this point, but I think it's a safe-ish bet, if there is a safe bet, to say that Sargent might not make it.
Yeah, but he wouldn't be a surprise. I think the guy that, if we're going to just branch off that for a second before we move on to the next story, the guy that could be left off the roster that would be a surprise for some people, even though there has been some evidence that he's not always top of mind for Mauricio Pochettino, is Weston McKennie. But we can leave that to the side. And Weston McKennie's been linked to a move to Major League Soccer and to America in the midst of his contract issue with Juve. So there's the couple of Americans. Now, obviously, Weston McKennie much higher profile than Josh Sargent because he's been important to the national team in recent years. But I just thought I would throw that in there.
Moving on to our second story of the day, Ricardo Pepi. He was trying to get himself back into the window for the United States men's national team, but facing a bit of a setback. Pepi, age 23, suffered a arm injury while scoring in PSV's 5-1 win at the weekend, scoring a goal, breaking his arm. Unfortunate stuff for the American.
Yeah, I mean, again, significant output for an American player in Europe is not something we should ever take for granted. And Ricardo Pepi has been consistently good for PSV. And I mentioned the possibility of a move, and Fulham being a club that was reportedly interested. It's not new interest. It's actually, I think it's been a year or two since Ricardo Pepi's kind of been linked to a potential move to a club like Fulham. It was a 5-1 win for PSV Eindhoven, who is the class of Dutch football at the moment. He was taken to the hospital, and it looks like he underwent surgery yesterday. So, I mean, again, like, where is the prognosis? AP is reporting 2 months for this injury with this broken arm. Peter Bosch, talking about it, it didn't look good right away. It's such a moment you would prefer to look the other way. Last January, Ricardo was already out due to a knee injury. Won't last that long now, but unfortunately, we lost him again. Pepe's on a good run, had a strong training camp, and was all the way back. All signs were green for a strong second half of the season, so this is incredibly disappointing. 2 months puts him in March before he's back on the field. That's plenty of time to make the World Cup roster, but it does mean he probably won't make the March window for World Cup warm-ups, which isn't great. I think Pochettino's going to be a little bit frustrated by that turn of events.
Yeah, no doubt. And it will be he's in just like Tyler Adams, he's going to be in the race to fitness in the spring.
Which is all the reason more for what you said, Rob, that you can't predict the World Cup. We have no idea what the World Cup roster looks like right now. Now, if there's 27 players on the World Cup roster and you named, you gave your 27 right now and I gave my 27 right now, we would probably get 23 of them correct or 22 of them correct, but we would miss on some because of things like this, because of injuries. Now, it's the same thing with Tyler Adams on some level, whereas if you're going to have an injury, have it now. Don't have it 3 months from now.
Yeah, I'm curious how much World Cup availability is now in these players' minds. Like, do I want to play in this FA Cup game and like turn an ankle on like a bobbly pitch when, possibly the biggest tournament in my life is in 6-8 months?
I mean, obviously this is the tension between club and country, and it becomes up as a regular issue. I definitely think that, players may have it in their heads. And I've heard Eric Winalda talk about this, that it is sometimes in a player's head. But how do you say no to the club that pays you, the club that writes the check, that supports your family, that puts you in the Maserati or whatever it is that you drive? Like, how do you say no to your club when they say, hey, we want you to play, you're playing in this game? You can't do that. I mean, again, Josh Sargent, not for I want to be in the World Cup reasons, but because maybe I want to get a transfer reason, it's going to suffer some consequences probably because of his decision not to play an FA Cup match, an FA Cup match that Norwich were probably destined to win from the very beginning. So, I don't know that a player should play chicken with their team that way and try to beg off in those situations, especially since the tide really has kind of turned more towards club than country. World Cup years are different, but clubs have more power in these situations.
Yeah, so 2 months out for sure for Pepi, and it's hard to predict exact timelines for injuries. You feel that month or that March window will be pretty key. Pochettino's been pretty unpredictable with his selections, and not necessarily one camp is indicative of the next, but you think that March 1 will be huge in World Cup preparation. Moving on to our third topic of the morning, MLS coaching. A lot of folks out there speculating that Wilfred Nancy's disastrous 33-day stint at Celtic would set back MLS coaching from jumping abroad. But on the heels of that, Eric Ramsey, the youngest MLS coach, getting the nod and going to West Bromwich Albion over in England.
Yeah, I mean, what is he, 12 years old, 13 years old? That's an incredible achievement for a teenager. No, he's a very young coach. I mean, that's part of the story here. There are two sides to this. Obviously, there's the West Brom side and there's the Minnesota United side. So on the West Brom side, are they taking a risk here, Rob? I mean, absolutely they are. Absolutely
young player. I mean, a young coach from a a league, not a top league. So, it is a gamble in a way, but I'm sure they're going to justify it when they look at his defensive record.
Well, okay, so that's the thing, is that even though he's only 34, and even though his only experience is in Major League Soccer, he's got 1.5 seasons under his belt. I think he came in the middle. I guess he got hired in February after training camp was already over, and so missed just the beginning of the 2024 season. So effectively 2 seasons, right? And did some things and made some progress, got his team into the playoffs. But the other part of the story, obviously, for Eric Ramsey, for anybody who's paying attention, is the way that his teams play. It's not just defensive, it's how they score their goals. Now, they score their goals, set pieces, and long throw-ins. Now, this is the mode du jour of playing winning football a la Arsenal. But of course, Arsenal also has incredibly technical, very talented players who can score goals other ways. And not to denigrate anybody playing for Minnesota United last season, but they were dire to watch. They were and he makes no apologies, right? I do respect the fact that Eric Ramsey is a guy who has never said, we play this way because, it's the best way for us. He's just like, no, this is how we play. This is how we win. And if you're West Brom, and you go look at the championship standings right now, West Brom is in 18th place. They're on 31 points. Remember that you 24 teams in the championships. You play 46 total games. So they still have 20 matches left to go in this season. They are 8 points up on Norwich City in the relegation battle, right? And there's a bunch of teams between them. Well, 3. Charlton, Blackburn, and Portsmouth are between them and the relegation zone. So I think it's interesting to wonder, are West Brom really in a relegation-threatened season, Rob? Would you say that? I mean, should they be flirting with it?
They might have made this move before they get truly sucked in.
And sometimes that's the right thing to do, right? Sometimes you can't, sunk cost fallacy, you can't keep holding on to a manager when things are going bad, and then, oh my God, things are terrible, we better make a change, and then it's too late. I get that. But West Brom is making a choice here. They are eschewing anything close to entertaining football for a bid just to stay in the championship. Because what Eric Ramsey is going to do is strip away any fun that West Brom fans might have watching their team play. Now, maybe they'll lean into it the way the Minnesota United fans did, and it becomes the identity of your team. And again, this is very different. And of course, they have Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard, but Arsenal has leaned into this identity of we are going to stop you from scoring goals, and we are going to find goals on set pieces. And their set piece coach was going absolutely bonkers next to Mikel Arteta when they nearly scored the winner against Liverpool last weekend. I mean, I was just during the midweek, I was just kind of stunned by how upfront the set piece coach was in the drama of the final corner kick that Arsenal got in that game, because that's their identity, right? And maybe West Brom is completely fine with that. And I don't have an in with the West Brom faithful to know whether they care about this or not. Like, maybe they don't. Maybe staying up is the most important thing. And of course, West Brom would imagine themselves in the Premier League if they can get their act together in a year or two. That's the kind of club they're supposed to be. So I think that this is interesting from that part of it. Like, Eric Ramsey, maybe he didn't lead the way, and maybe because it's MLS, it didn't quite get as much attention. But I certainly think that in certain analytical quarters, the way people think about football, Eric Ramsey's kind of a star. Like, he has to be at 34 to even get this job.
Right. They're viewing him as an up-and-coming star. Maybe they're looking past the league and his experience and just saying, this guy, he's that young and he's getting that kind of results. He got his club their best ever results at such an early age. That in its own right is pretty incredible. But West Brom's situation, they are 7 points off the relegation zone, which Norwich is in. They've scored 29 goals in 26 games. So that seems about his sort of ballpark there. And when this story came out, one of the top comments kind of made me chuckle. It was like, I think it was a Minnesota fan saying, why does West Brom hate their fans? Because they know They
Yeah.
know that there is not
Yeah.
going to be a whole lot of a highlight reel.
This is
techers
football.
Here.
This is football stoicism, right? This is the guys who use the flails to you know whip themselves because of original sin or what. Like, that's the kind of. I mean, maybe I'm overstating a bit, but I've talked to Eric Ramsey, right? I've interviewed him on the radio. I've watched his teams play. I've seen his comments. The man is committed to this. And so from that perspective, West Brom's making a choice. But I also said this to you at the top of the show or before we started. This kind of, and the reason for Eric Ramsey to take this job and leave Minnesota United, where he's built himself a little bit of a fiefdom, right? Like he could continue to do this at Minnesota, continue to try to squeeze blood from a stone and get Minnesota United in the playoffs every year and maybe make a run and push everybody, when they play San Diego in San Diego. San Diego wants the ball. Minnesota makes it difficult. Like, he could keep doing this. Does this indicate that the English championship is still that much better in the mind of a coach than Major League Soccer? Now, and I think you do have to consider that Eric Ramsey himself is British. Like, if he wasn't British, maybe the pull wouldn't be so distinct, so strong on him. I don't know. I think that also, though, whether you're British or not, if you go to West Brom, you keep them up, maybe even improve their position a little bit, you now have a reputation as a guy who's a fixer, who can do something like this. And I don't know what Eric Ramsey's ultimate goals are, if he wants to manage at Manchester United, where he was the set-piece coach. But he could become that guy, right? Maybe not Sean Dyche. That's probably not the right way to look at it. Maybe not Sam Allardyce exactly, but something in that mode, right? A manager who gets more from less, and particularly a manager who can do a job when you're threatened by relegation.
Yeah, and there's a whole skill to that, and lots of coaches have made whole entire careers of that, of not necessarily excelling, but doing well enough to solidify, batten up the hatches, and keep their teams in their leagues. And
so
I think
the other
that's
part of
definitely
this,
what West Brom's looking for.
I'm sorry to cut you off. The other part of this, obviously, that we should just acknowledge is after the Wilfred Nancy implosion at Celtic, following Jesse Marsh at Leeds, and going all the way back to Bob Bradley at Swansea. And there's even a new Guardian article out, I think today or yesterday, that has quotes from Bob Bradley, quotes from Chris Armas, who was an assistant at Man United under Ralph Ragnick, about the American coaching experience in England. Now, Eric Ramsey's not American. I mean, he was only here for a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it was. So he doesn't have how much of MLS sticks to Eric Ramsey as he goes off to West Brom, Rob, in terms of the reputation of MLS.
I feel like if he has a good first month, it's completely drains away off of him. And if he has success, I think that'll be a light footnote. It'll be, young English manager does well, will probably most likely come out to be the narrative. And it could be a footnote. Like, it wouldn't be, not everyone that comes over from Major League Soccer is a disaster, but I imagine he'll just be credentialed as a young and upcoming English manager there. So we'll see how that all pans out in the English Championship for the Minnesota United FC coach. Eric Ramsey headed out after he brought Minnesota United their best season in 2025, getting 16 regular season wins and finishing fourth in the Western Conference. Moving along, staying in the Western Conference, though, big news: star player for San Diego FC. The expansion side had the best ever expansion season, and they are most likely saying goodbye to star player Chucky Lozano.
Yeah, Chucky Lozano was obviously a high-profile signing for a club that is right there across the border from Mexico, and having a Mexican international like Chucky Lozano made sense on a couple different levels. I think he's a talented player, but he didn't quite live up to the hype in San Diego. He had a high-profile bust-up in the locker room that led to a benching, which led to him kind of being sidelined as an important part of San Diego's team during the MLS Cup playoffs. And so what I would say here, without belaboring this too much, is that San Diego's doing what good teams do, what smart teams do. They are getting out of the business of a player who has not quite been what they hoped he would be, right? They're not saying, well, let's give him another year and see if it works. Let's keep going. Let's keep, banging our head up against this particular brick wall. And maybe the personality clash element is a major part of this. It's hard to know. I was saying to you, Rob, that I can't remember too often an MLS team coming out and saying, yeah, that player's not in our plans. And we've informed the player he's not in our plans, right? Because of the way MLS roster rules work, it's really hard to get out of a contract or get out of the bit. Like, you can't just move a player on as easily as you might somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. And you have some details on Chucky's contract, which make it difficult to imagine there's an easy place for him to go. Now, is Mexico an option? I think there are clubs who have expressed interest, but also money's a thing here because San Diego can't cancel his contract. It's not like they're just done with him.
Yeah, per this AS article, Lozano's contract runs through 2028, rumored to be about $9 million a season. So there can't be a whole lot of flexibility within Major League Soccer. Not too many teams have that to spare, or especially not pre-planned. I'm sure if a team is willing to lay out that kind of money, they had somebody in mind that didn't, pop up on their doorstep, like, San Diego's star player not being in their plans. I'm sure not a lot of teams were banking on that sort of situation because that doesn't really happen too often. And even if they did want them out, saying it publicly is interesting too, because you're kind of stuck in a rock between a rock and a hard place with negotiations, I'm sure. This article, the AS article, says that Atlanta might be a possible one of the few landing spots possible in Major League Soccer, and they already have their own restructuring and rebuilding and kind of overhauling of that team going on right now. Did they open up some space for that, or are things kind of locked in? It's kind of hard to explain. And then plus you put on top of that, it might be a character issue. So what? It's a team that a $9 million layout for a Major League Soccer team is absolutely mammoth. And then one other team in your league already is dismissing him because he, was detrimental to the team vibes and the chemistry enough to where he got benched. That seems like a tough sell for a Major League Soccer side.
Yeah, and Tata Martino back in Atlanta.
Well, that's why I think that's why the connection is being made in this article.
Yeah, because he has a previous relationship with Chucky from the Mexican national team. I don't know, man. I think there's something in Chucky Lozano that he could be very effective for an MLS team. I just don't know if he's good, if that number is worth it, right? That's the number that I would be like, that's the reason I would think twice about this. Interested to see where Chucky lands in MLS, or if he lands in MLS at all.
You're talking about things being unprecedented. What are the chances of him being one of those guys that won't renegotiate his contract and he ends up training with the reserve team for the next couple seasons? Could you see him riding out like that?
No.
You wouldn't think so, no. But I'm trying to parallel that to overseas, where most of the time a player that's not you don't want anymore, you can send him away and even pay him his contract just to be somewhere else. And I don't know if that sort of mechanism exists in Major League Soccer. And then sometimes when that plays out, when the player doesn't accept to be shipped away because that contract might be lower or doesn't want to move his family, there are examples of players literally being in purgatory, being stuffed in the janitor closet for the next 2 years while they just grind through their contract.
Yeah, there's some interesting things happening in MLS this offseason. I mean, it feels like we're turning a bit of a corner. I know it's kind of subtle sometimes, but turning a bit of a corner. And I don't mean that I'm not even putting a value judgment on it, good or bad. I mean, MLS has always been weird with the roster rules and the restrictions on clubs. It's not that those are completely gone. They're still there. But we're in this moment where I think teams are being given an opportunity to maybe work around the rules a little bit. I mean, again, people are upset because Miami is making moves this offseason that don't seem like they could possibly fit. I do think this idea that Tristan Blackman was going to go to Miami has been squashed by Vancouver. But, again, there's at least – I think, without speaking directly to whether these things can happen within the MLS rules as they exist, Rob, there is a buzz in the transfer game of MLS that is different, I think, in years past. Whereas, I don't know how to describe it other than it does feel like there's a little bit more to that rumor mill and the excitement that comes from it, because we talk about this. I talk about this all the time. One thing that MLS has long lacked, especially before free agency was a thing, which is something I can remember when it didn't exist, is you didn't have that internal transfer discussion. You might have, that player might go to Europe, or maybe an MLS team's going to sign a big name from Europe, but it wasn't It
into
didn't
league.
have that buzz. It didn't have that hot stove kind of thing that drives so much of conversation, especially in the close season in places like England.
Yeah, and it is great. You think about 10, 15 years ago, players, when they came in, they were like almost stuck. There was players reticent to join Major League Soccer because once you were in, and you were kind of stuck there for long term. And yeah, going between team to team was not really a thing with the mechanisms at hand. And when did free agents come in? That was only 5 years
No. There's been a form of free agency for more than a decade. It's a while. It's 2012 something, but
really,
it was a very
limited.
restricted form of free agency, and then slowly those restrictions started to be loosened, and now we're at a point where there's pretty basic, pretty strong free agent market. Christian Espinosa signing with Nashville, I think, is a good example of that.
All right, moving along with our next story. Pretty fantastic weekend if you were looking overseas to the FA Cup over in England. That historic competition produced a big upset. Macclesfield defeating cup holders Crystal Palace, something that hadn't happened in over 100 years. So as we are an American soccer show, I thought, is there anything comparable this sort of cup set within the United States soccer?
Well, okay, let's establish. You are giving me a bit of an education. So Macclesfield plays in the fifth tier,
Sixth tier,
the sixth tier of English football. And I know I saw somewhere the difference in places, like where Crystal Palace is in the Premier League standings and where Macclesfield Town is in the whatever they're in National League South, whatever they're in, and the number of places between them, and that being the biggest gap ever, right?
Yep, 117 places.
Okay, 117 places. It's really hard to port that over to American soccer. We don't have a structure that allows you to go, there's 117 places, but you can't really do that. But, and Macclesfield is, while not technically amateur, they are kind of amateur-ish, right?
Yeah, they were saying that all the players have other jobs. They only train 2 times a week, and they were saying that the winnings from this FA Cup might allow them to go full-time.
Okay, so we are talking about semi-pro at best, right, for Macclesfield Town, which does give us some context for how to talk about this from an American perspective. It's got to be Cal FC beating Portland. It has to be Cal FC beating Portland. And I don't say that only because I happen to work with one Eric Winalda on the radio every day over on SiriusXM FC. And I pulled up these are the highlights from 2012 when Cal FC went up to Portland and beat the Portland Timbers in their own building. And, again, not just saying this because I work with Eric. And
yeah, I was going to say, you'd get absolutely flamed if you didn't bring this up in this subject, wouldn't you?
And not just saying this because I work with Eric, and he mentions it at least once a week, because why wouldn't you? Right? But this is an amateur side. Like you can say, Eric Winalda will tell you that the way he built this team was not typical for the amateur level that Cal FC played at or the leagues they were in. Right. And so, for example, one thing that can kind of happen at the amateur levels is you qualify through your league play, but those players don't have to be the same players that you go into the Open Cup with. You know what I'm saying? So there are, like, at one point, there is kind of a focus question. Like, what are we focused on? Who's playing in what? And you're inviting players to come and play for you that maybe weren't part of the qualification season or whatever. I don't know. It's just interesting because I'm not saying that I'm not trying to take anything away from Cal FC. I'm just saying that there was a focus by a former professional player in Eric Winalda, a guy who understood what it took to play at the highest level, to put together a team that could do this kind of thing, which doesn't make it less remarkable, but I think is important context for how it went down. Because to me, that makes them more like Macclesfield than, say, a bunch of Joes getting together on the weekend, right? It's a little bit more. It's not Des Moines Menace and the Ringers that they brought in, But some of these guys were pretty close to being professional players, or had very good college careers, or whatever it might be. If you know what I'm saying.
A highly elite amateur side was concocted for this purpose.
Right. And the thing that Eric will tell you is that his unique talent was in finding talent, like the scouting part of it, and recognizing the players who might be able to get it done.
His grit radar was high.
Something like that. Yeah. So I got Cal FC. Somebody mentioned Christos. Now, I don't remember who Christos knocked off. I know that they scored a goal against DC United and then lost that game.
I'll never forget the flood of the bright yellow shirts, that mob of people that came down that hill when Christos scored that goal. That was something to definitely remember. And then some anti-MLS banners and some pro-rel for USA stuff when we were kind of on the front, more of a leading edge of that subversive sort of moment for pro-rel. But according to the cup.us, they listed a top 3 in reaction to this over the weekend. So definitely check out if you want to dig into Open Cup stuff. The cup.us is
shout out to Josh Hackle and those guys. So Michigan people. Why are there so many Michigan people around on this show? It's crazy. Well, it's like Michiganders coming out of the woodwork.
Well, because there's a vacuum. There's a soccer vacuum here. There's never been a Major League Soccer team, so everyone started their own clubs and podcasts and websites and trying to fill the void for the soccer lovers, filling the void. And that's how DCFC happened. They're trying to fill the void, trying to make a team for their own. On this list, to another Michigan reference, 2012, the same year as Winalda's team, the Michigan Bucks from the PDL beating the Chicago Fire 3-2.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a shout. And PDL would have been
largely, now the USL 2.
Not now USL 2. And I guess at that time when the Open Cup was happening, that would have been the college kids who beat the Chicago Fire there, right? So a PDL team would have been almost entirely made up of college players during their summer season. Yeah. So that's whereas I think Cal FC was not necessarily a bunch of college kids. It was some guys who were just on the edge of whether they could be pro or not. In fact, I think if you go back and look at that Cal FC roster, and I didn't think to pull this up, but I think there's a couple of guys who did end up getting pro contracts out of that Open Cup run. And
that goal that you showed in those highlights, there was a really tidy finish from one of those Cal FC players. That was definitely worth a look. But
here's the Bucks. Here's an example. Danny Barrera, a Colombian player, ended up in America. Actually went to Eric Winalda's high school, so that might be one of the connections. He played for Ventura County Fusion, Spartak Subotica, which I've never heard of, but clearly is in somewhere in Eastern Europe, and then ended up playing Cal FC and helped with that Open Cup run, and then ended up playing for the Silverbacks, where Eric Winalda subsequently coached, right? And then played for San Antonio, the Scorpions, Carolina Railhawks, Sacramento Republic, Fresno FC. Got a pro career out of that run.
So his high school alumnus had a career overseas, came back, connected with Winalda, and ended up having a domestic career here. So that's pretty cool. And I do recall this Michigan Bucks game in 2012 against the Fire that happened indoors in there's a giant megaplex indoors here, not too far away from my house, and they that's where this all went down. You can find these highlights on YouTube as well. And they won 3-2 in extra time. And I've never seen, they called it the Tin Can. The DCFC fans called it the Tin Can. And Michigan Stars ended up playing that building as well. But a big youth facility now. But Michigan Bucks taking down the Chicago Fire in that, and in the other top 3 big time upsets in Open Cup. I did not see this one, but this goes all the way back to 2006. Amateur side Dallas Roma beating Chivas USA in penalties.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good shot as well. I see that Scred Red wants to also mention the Rhinos winning the whole thing back in 99.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Pat Onstad was on that team. I remember that because I've talked to him about it before.
Not amateur, but big one.
No. But and second division, but at a time when, well, I mean, MLS was not what it is now by any stretch. But then again, second division soccer in America wasn't what it is now by any stretch. So it's kind of hard to put it in context, but it was still a remarkable thing for the Rhinos to do in the early days of MLS.
And we started this conversation off talking about Macclesfield defeating reigning cup holders Crystal Palace. And I want to say just one of the wonderful things about sports and the history of having a history to lean on. I thought it was kind of an interesting note that Crystal Palace was the last team of this low stature to beat the holders, back in the 1800s. So it's funny that they were involved in both, and the fact that like in their 140-year history, they'd never won a cup, and then they make history the next year for being the team that loses. Which is kind of wild.
Man, what a life. What a life. And I was tracking that. I wasn't able to watch the game, but I was tracking the game a little bit on social media, and I saw other people saying what is true about Oliver Glasner. He's done great stuff at Crystal Palace. Not a guy who really knows how to get his team to play with the ball. If you got the ball and you're against Macclesfield, you're going to have the ball. You got to be able to do stuff with it. And Crystal Palace just didn't have those ideas. So.
Yeah, an interesting note that hopefully this doesn't tarnish the sterling career of one American, Chris Richards, who was a starter that day on the weekend.
Shout out to Toso Mario, who is mentioning Puerto Rico Islanders beating the LA Galaxy twice, which is old school American soccer history for those of us old enough. Shout out to the Islanders, yeah.
Shout out to the Islanders, indeed. And again, a second division and a first division was that Chicago Fire and FC Cincinnati back in the day. That was
remember that one?
Amazing
yeah,
one.
Yeah. We had a couple of those. Yeah. All right, ready to move on?
Yeah, let's move on. It is now time now that Jason has returned from a faraway land. We're back in here, and we need to check in with our MK Ultras, our channel members. We've got quite a few new ones who we haven't dotted the map yet. So you got that map handy for us there, Jason?
I do have the map ready to go. There's the map. This is our MK Ultras map, which is always a work in progress as people join up. I'm not going to try to make it too dizzy as I move this around. Rob, are you looking? Do you have a couple of people we could dot the map with? Are you able to pass that information to me as I work with the map itself?
All right. So the first one, when I pop open the Morning Kickaround Discord server, which you can access if you are a channel member, the first one that pops up in the dot the map thread is we have a gentleman. The screen name is Gorps. I'm not sure exactly what GORPS. I'm not sure what that is, but he is a member from Ontario, Canada.
Oh, we have a Canadian member? Wow, we're dotting the map of Canadian soccer too? That's incredible.
Yeah. Should we get a ruling from the group? Are Canadians allowed in?
I put Ontario. Are you sure it's Canada? Because does it say CA or does it say Canada, Rob?
Yep, he says Ontario, Canada in his entry.
Okay, he does. All right, so because there's an Ontario, California, which is not very much not Canada. I just want to make sure. Now it says, I think it's specifically okay. It does say Ontario is a big place. I'm kind of concerned about trying to dot the map for Ontario. Like, what is that going to end up doing?
Yeah, that's like saying put me in California or something. It's even bigger than that.
But much bigger than that. Look, if I put just Ontario, I'm going to zoom in here to see where it landed us. We're at Niagara on the Lake Hospital. What? Is that right? That can't be right.
That's really far away. Maybe put them. I mean, you put them in Windsor, and anyone from Ontario that doesn't live in Windsor and you identify them as Windsor will definitely speak up and correct us. So maybe put them down by Windsor, down by Detroit, and I'm sure he'll.
Now it says in his message in the Discord, it says, lay down a marker in Ontario, Canada, aka CDG. What does CDG mean, Rob? You're Canadian adjacent. You should know this. What does that mean?
There is a cultural barrier larger than the river from Detroit to Canada. I do not know what CDG.
So our man is in the chat today. He is CDG objects. That's what he was saying, aka CDG. That's who he is. That's why he said AKA. That's my mistake on. I thought that was his location. That's clearly the handle. He's saying between Toronto and Ottawa. And I guess I'm going with Marmara just because it looks like it's halfway in between. CDG. If you don't want to give us your exact location, you're completely allowed to not give us that. So I'm just going to put you right here. We're going to put CDG. I guess we can put Gorps too, because that's what you are in the Discord. There we go. All right, Rob. Now we got Canada. Canada's on the map. What do you think? What got any more, or are we tapped out already?
Well, I
what do
gotta
you
say,
want?
we do have at least one, two more. We have Columbus Grove, Ohio.
Okay, is that not Columbus, Ohio? That's Columbus
Columbus
Grove.
Grove, Ohio.
All right, there it is. I see Columbus Grove. Who is in Columbus Grove that we need to dot the map with?
Blaine.
Blaine is in. Okay, that's
BL.
Blaine.
You got it.
Blaine. All right. Blaine is in Columbus. We have a little bit of Ohio representation. Oh, Columbus Grove is not near Columbus. Okay, it's up there. It's up there. I guess this is, what's the biggest town in that area of I guess Bowling Green, Toledo. Toledo is to the north. It's not too far from Fort Wayne, so I imagine you'll get out to some Fort Wayne games there.
Yeah, shout out to Ryan and the Fort Wayne contingent that tune in to the show. But yeah, another one we got here. Do we have Covington, Kentucky on the
I
map?
believe we do. I believe that one is covered, but I will pull it up anyway. I believe Covington. Maybe not. Maybe. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I don't have anybody in Covington. Okay, who's in Covington, Kentucky?
Covington, Kentucky is the home of Bromansky.
Bromansky, spell that for me, please. Is it an I or a Y situation?
BR0
Oh,
MANSKY.
SKY. Okay, not an I, a Y. All right,
Correct.
that's essentially we're talking about Cincinnati then, just across the river from Cincinnati, Ohio. So Covington, Kentucky. All right, that's good. I can't believe we didn't have anybody in Cincinnati to this point. Or we got some Dayton. We got let's see, who's this in Dayton? Tons of Fun is in Dayton. We got Jason Hoover in Ohio as well. Shout out to Jason Hoover. Muncie, Spencer's in Muncie. That's Indiana. That's not Ohio, obviously. And then obviously we just added Blaine up north in Ohio. Okay, Midwest represent.
Represent, y'all. Represent. Do we have a dot already in Grafton, Massachusetts?
Grafton. Is that how you spell it? Grafton, Massachusetts. There we go. Let's see. I don't see a dot in Grafton, Massachusetts, near Worcester. Go ahead.
Worcester.
Who's that?
Which Worcester? That is for Penzoni. Penzoni.
Zoni. Like that. Okay, got it. Penzoni. In Grafton, Mass. All right. What about? Well, that's good. That's good.
And as we work our way through this, reminds me that I think we need an admin on here, because the dot the map has encouraged a lot of conversation, which has complicated the matter here of getting the specific town names. But as I scan through here,
I don't know what you're saying. What are you saying?
I was going to say we might need someone to help us clear out the dot the map thread, because people just started talking, and so finding the actual locations has become a little bit unwieldy. A little bit. Okay. I love the conversation. Lots of conversation in the morning Kickaround Discord.
I'm gonna take care of our man North Mississippi Soccer, who would like to be known as Brad. So Brad. You're gonna be Brad, and you're going to be Brad / or dash North Mississippi Soccer, just so we have we're covering all your bases. So Brad wanted an update on his dot. You're allowed to do that too, right? Obviously, you are involved in the show. You're an ultra. You support the program. If you're dotted on the map and you want to update your dot, maybe your move. Or maybe you just want to change your name or whatever. I mean, at some point I'll figure out how to put flags or something on this. I don't know. Club badges. We'll do something like that. Anyway, colors. I can change color schemes. I haven't really thought about that. Maybe you want a color.
Yeah, we can definitely get granular and add the details over time. Beat Squad in the comments. Yes, the dots on the map here are definitely for MK Ultras. So if you're able to become a member.
The other thing that we definitely need to do is start putting club affiliation into these. And I'm not doing all of that now live, because I feel like that would be a bit of a slog, but we will throw some club affiliations on here if you so choose. If you want to add your club to your handle or to your description or whatever that is. And I think we do have the link in the channel on the Discord for everybody to look at the map. Obviously, we don't want everybody editing the map themselves, but you can take a look at the map. I think it's publicly shared. So, MK Ultras, it says it right there where all the coolest soccer fans live. The map does not lie, Rob.
Yeah, we need that the Plain States and that upper Midwest or there's a whole lot of no dots in the Montanas. I mean, granted, population's lower there. I still
There's
can't
no
believe there's no
people there.
Denver.
There's
no
people.
Denver, but
Listen,
I'm saying Denver.
I
I mean,
know.
come
Look,
on.
look at this. Look at this whole region right here.
Utah.
We got Vegas represented, but from Northern California, we got a couple of people in Northern California, obviously down here in San Jose too, all the way across those Rocky Mountain states, all across the West, basically nothing. Basically nothing. I think we technically have somebody in Kansas, so that's good. That's represented. We don't have Nebraska because our guy Todd lives on the other side of the border from Omaha. So he lives in Iowa. He doesn't live in Nebraska, which means we got to get Nebraska on the list. I see Oklahoma. Our man Tulsa Mario is out there in Tulsa. We got Justin in Oklahoma as well. I think is that just the two? Texas.
Texas. I thought we had some Texas folks.
Did we? Wait. Am I missing something? Did we not? I'm gonna search. I'm gonna search the channel and see if we can find any Texas. No Texas. That seems like a failure on our part, I guess. I don't know, man.
And speaking of failures, I think I need to fire up my my Chicago people. There isn't nearly enough dots in Chicago because I got a lot of friends and family out there, and it's sparsely populated. I think we only have like one dot out there, so I'm gonna have to stoke the flames in my Chicago folks. But thank you everyone for sending that in, and then definitely send us a message. I see the some people entering some messages, new ones in the thread. We got a message from Ken asking us to add a dot in Prestonburg, Kentucky.
Prestonburg, Kentucky.
Preston's and he is a Lexington supporter.
Okay, well then we will put Ken Lexington. Is it Lexington FC? Is that what it is?
SC.
They're an SC. We need consistency in this country. Can't keep track. Lexington SC, Prestonburg, Kentucky. Shout out to Ken. So that means we have a couple in Kentucky now, right? We're actually like per capita, I think we're doing okay in Kentucky, considering we now have Ken there in Prestonburg. We've got John Hunt in Rockcastle County, Kentucky as well. So yeah, I mean, and I think what did I say? We got Bromansky now in Covington. So we got 3 in Kentucky and 0 in Texas. Kentucky is killing it. Kentucky is killing it.
Yeah, indeed. And it's pretty wild that nothing in Texas, because it's one of, when you look at the statistics, it's one of the places where we get some of our most domestic views is California and Texas and Florida. Obviously, a lot of population centers, but it's kind of wild that we haven't convinced or haven't got anyone to buy in yet.
Somebody is going to be following our countdown to kickoff with Atletico Dallas, and they're going to join, right? That's going to happen. And I'm trying to zoom in on where I think Atletico Dallas is doing all their stuff. Where are they doing all their stuff here? I know we just got news on Atletico Dallas.
Yeah, they just got a new home base, a new, I think, shop and office center. And so when we connect with them, I'm sure that's going to be a topic we cover.
Yeah,
Luke Zagorski bringing up an interesting topic. When do we all get to meet each other? When is the first KickCon? And it was interesting. I actually had a phone call with Ryan in Fort Wayne, and he wants to maybe do an Ultra Fest at one of the first games at in Fort Wayne's new stadium in May.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That's a little bit of lead time. If I'm not telling tales out of school and I have to reconnect because my time in Puerto Rico really upended some plans. But we're supposed to have some conversation with people who run leagues in this country, not professional leagues necessarily. Figure out what we're talking about, who want us to do stuff with them or maybe want us to do stuff with them. So, man, we're moving forward. We got some things cooking, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, with that in mind, morningkickaround@gmail.com. If you have any ideas for an Ultra Fest, Ultra Fest in Fort Wayne in May sounds like a great time, or any sort of business inquiries, or if you're a club or a league who's interested in some sort of partnering or maybe an on-location episode of the show, we're definitely open to that. And 2026 is the year to do it. This is the year of explosion. Really, this last year of the show is to build up to have the best 2026 possible. And here we are.
Yeah. I mean, just trying to I'm one of those people, like, I get a little bit anxious. I get a little anxiety around the future and things I got to do. And, I'm going to figure it all out and all of that stuff. But there is a lot on the plate in 2026 for me with this show. Hopefully we're moving forward. Incredible opportunities, soccer's growth. And then I'm also sending a kid to college and sending a kid to kindergarten. So, I got some stuff going on, Rob.
The year of Jason. It's the year of Jason.
I don't know. And my wife wants to buy a business. I don't know what's happening anymore, Rob. It's too much. And I'm also thinking about making even more content. I'm a sick person, basically, is what we're saying here. I got too much going on, and I want to add more for some reason.
You're a content machine, Mr. Davis. You're a content machine.
Is anybody asking for all this content? Let's not talk about that. Let's not consider that question. Let's just, some people need to do what they need to do. And that's how I'll say it.
It's great to have you back on the continental United States, and great to have you back on board and get the show back to its regular-ish format and schedule. And thank you. I'm glad we got to reconnect with the Ultras as well, get some more dots on the map and kind of work our way through that. And thank you to Mr. Bob for giving us a donation today. And also, I talked about it at the top of the show, Ko-fi.com/morningkickaround is a place where you can donate to our travel fund in case you haven't gone over there. And thanks to the folks like Alan, Eric, Cody, and Ron, amongst the others who regularly donate on Ko-fi.com/morningkickaround. And also shout out to our newest members from over the weekend, Phil Talk Sports and Danny Mendez. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and supporting the show in any way you are able. So we will be back on Wednesday. We've got a countdown to kickoff to get to, and I'm sure there'll be a plethora more footy news in our midst. So
Rob,
until then,
can I mention before you send us away, before Jenny hits the button to take us out the air, 2 subscribers to get to 7,000. 2. If you're watching the show right now, or you're watching back later, or you're watching anything subscribe so we can get to 7K. Come on, let's go. Let's get to 7K.
Yeah, we want to see that 7K by the time we come live next time. But until then, everybody, please stay safe and enjoy your soccer. Take care.